We're calling the meeting to order at 6:15. I want to thank Jim, Diane, Steve Schatz, and Pam for joining us. Also, Michael Canales for participating. Clarence Fanto of the Eagle is on, and Christine Rasmussen also has joined us. So the first thing I would like to do is to thank all Bill Vogt is coming on right now. Um, Here he is. Well, welcome, Bill. Welcome. Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry,
welcome.
I'm a minute late.
No, we're good. And I was just welcoming everybody, and I wanted to thank everybody, all the members of the committee for completing the Ethics and Conflict of Interest course and sending their documentation to Terry Emilini. In addition to tonight's meeting, at which we are going to have our first discussion of the budget and the warrant articles and capital items, we have a meeting scheduled on the 23rd. That is a meeting of the Berkshire Regional School District to discuss the budget. And it's a public meeting of all of the participating finance committees as well as select boards. That's 6 o'clock on the 23rd. I believe the majority of you can make that. And on the 25th, we have a joint meeting with the Regional School District Planning Board to discuss a proposal for more regionalization, and also and present a grant-funded study. Each of the 8 participating communities will be required to add an additional 15,000 per member. So that's on the 23rd at 6:30. And I believe the majority of you can also attend that meeting. So that's what's coming up. I have circulated to everybody the minutes of our January 13th meeting. Are there any comments? Okay.
I'll move their approval.
Second.
Okay, so that was 113. We had Steve moved.
No, Jim, and I seconded.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Jim.
Jim. Okay, any discussion? There being none, I call for motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed?
By roll call, Jay, unfortunately.
Okay, we need to do roll call.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve Schatz.
Aye.
Okay, Pam.
Aye.
Okay, Bill.
Aye.
Okay, Jim.
Aye.
And also Diane.
Aye.
And myself is aye. Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda will be a discussion of the budget, the proposed budget. What our plan for this is Michael will take us through the budget. This will be our first run at it. There will have to be some additions and changes. We will not vote on anything tonight until it becomes more finalized. And also on the 25th, that's the meeting, the planning meeting, the regional school planning meeting. We are also planning on calling some of the departments that some of our members have questions to explain their budget. So just as a brief overview before I call on Michael, the budget that you have been circulated, the draft budget, is basically one that has includes 2% salary increases for union workers, and also 1.3% cost of living increases for non-union town workers. There will be more discussion on this. I know Michael will want to review the salaries in more detail with respect to personal performance. And in addition to which, the budget basically represents an increase of 127,145. That's the expense budget. Included in that is $217,000 increase in the capital and operating Berkshire Regional Hills School budget. And also we have not, and I repeat, we have not incorporated OPEB. We need to talk to our actuaries, Odyssey Partners, to see whether or not we should be funding at a lower rate or considering not funding for this period. So there'll be more to follow on that. At this point, I would call on Michael. Michael.
Thanks, Jay. I know for the one thing I'll bring up is for the 25th, talking to the chairman of the select board, he brought up about bringing water, sewer, and police in on the 25th. Because he feels like those are pretty straightforward, and bringing those larger departments that have been under control of people for quite a while, so they really understand their budgets well. And then we'll schedule meetings for additional joint meetings for other departments.
Okay, and you know, not to exclude obviously fire, and we'll have to talk further about highway and so
Yep.
forth. You know,
Yeah, those two would be planned on bringing probably in March. So, but we thought to keep the first night to the regional school district, planning board, the water, sewer, and police. So if everybody, or if you guys feel that's a good starting point, we'll start with that on the 25th, and I'll get an agenda out and a time.
Perfect. Now,
Good.
one other thing, Michael, before we get into the actual draft budget,
Yes.
you need to send us the invitation to the general school budget meeting on the 23rd. Okay, we
I
don't.
thought I did today.
I don't have it. Just send it. It's not a big deal.
Right,
Like,
because they sent the invite for, yeah, I'll resend it
good.
right now, so I don't forget.
223 and 225 invites. And then I'll circulate them to the committee. Okay.
Yep,
Okay, let's go through general government first. The first issue that comes up is a reduction in the selectmen expenses. You want to talk about that a little bit?
yep. So I'm gonna, if it's all right, I'm gonna share my screen.
Good.
Oops,
Okay,
let's see here.
that's selectmen expenses.
Yep. All right, so selectmen's expenses. So right now we're proposing to cut 15,000 out of litigation. The litigation line crept up over the last couple of years due to some known costs that we would be incurring. Right now, there's no known litigation expenses right now. So we feel comfortable that we could reduce litigation by 15,000.
Okay, and also there was also under the selectmen, just hang on one sec. We had a reduction in the town administrator expenses, an increase in the accountant's expenses, That is as a result of an increase in the fee for the audit from Adelson and Company.
Yep.
The remainder of these items, there was a reduction in the treasurer collector's salary. That's due to the amount that we hired Erica Olson at. And town facilities salaries, we had an increase that obviously is the 1.3%. And the town office expenses, okay. Town office expenses, you had mentioned, Michael, that we have a reduction in building repairs.
Yes. So
Uh,
one of the things that I've done with all the departments is we've looked back at the 3-year averages for what was actually expended in 18, 19, and 20, then looked at their appropriation for 21, and then what would be asked for 22. So if a department had continually operated underneath that, and you can see the building repair line, over the last 3 years, it's been 7, 23, and 20. So instead of asking for 30, we're putting it at 25. We don't have any anticipated large repairs, but we do want to leave enough in there to cover things if they do. But that's how we started looking at these lines and saying, okay, where are any that have traditionally come in and you really haven't spent up to what's been asked? So, it allows us to make some tweaks in this, and we'll continue as the years go on to keep looking back as we build this budget control sheet out more and more, of looking at what historically we've done and then balancing it against, is there anything they're anticipating the departments would need? And if they tell me no, then that's the time to make some adjustments. And that's what we did in the town offices.
Okay.
I do have a question, Jay, about this.
Go ahead, Stephen.
The building repairs are only with respect to the town office building?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Jake, can I ask a question too? Or
Absolutely, of course.
make a comment? You can tell me to shut up, or it's a really bad comment and I will stifle myself. But on an $11 million budget, do we really want to go through this and dig down into $2,000 variances?
No, I mean, we're gonna skim through this pretty quickly, okay?
Okay, well, that's not the way we started.
Well, we've got a few highlights that we need to go over.
That's
okay?
my point. Highlights.
Exactly. And
Okay, thank
that's
you.
what I intend to do, okay?
Okay,
Thank you, Bill.
And Michael will help me out. All right, I answered that very civilly, didn't I, Bill?
you did. You haven't thrown me out. Thank you.
Not at all. We're amongst gentle people here. Okay, so that's the discussion at this point of general government. Moving on to public safety, the next one. Here we have some things we're concerned about. Police department expenses. Michael, you want to talk about radios, cruisers, and et cetera?
Right. So the biggest jump in police department expenses you'll see is actually under new patrol equipment. So starting in fiscal year 20 and then this year, you place the purchase of the new cruiser within the budget of the police department. And right now, as we move forward with purchasing our vehicles, we're looking at a couple things, such as we need to upgrade. Sometimes we've been able to transfer lights, equipment, radios, and others, but those things need to be upgraded. So as part of that, the cost of the vehicles is going to be slightly higher as we move forward. And also we are looking at right now whether or not to purchase into a hybrid vehicle. There's been a hybrid vehicle on the market for a number of years for the police departments to use. And that would also push the costs up. And the cost has just continually raised. If we weren't to go with the hybrid, we're still looking in the mid 40s for a vehicle. I think it was closer to 48, but what we did is we threw in the budget The 53,710 would actually include, that would be for a hybrid cruiser if we were to move that direction. And that's something that we could obviously discuss further with the police department and the police chief, and which vehicle we would be looking at.
Just for everybody's information, these vehicles are purchased through the state of Massachusetts. It's a central purchasing program. They're not independently purchased. Is that correct, Michael?
Yeah, we typically go off the state contracts for vehicles through state approved vendors. And then we upfit them. Lately, we've been using out of Pittsfield. I think it's Pittsfield Communicator. I'm trying to remember offhand the name, but they do some of the upfitting of the vehicle in order to get it fully ready as a patrol vehicle. So, yes.
Jay, I have a comment.
Yep, go ahead, Steve.
Michael, I'm very pleased to see that the recurring expenses like this, because the replacement of cruisers is something that we focused on several years ago, about it being a recurring expense, and about the need to have it included in a budget rather than a special, special article. So if we get to any discussion about the special articles, I'd like to raise that issue again as to why we are not including or setting aside funds for the purchase of vehicles, which we know will have to be replaced on a periodic basis. And I'm referring here to the highway department. So it doesn't need the discussion now, but when we eventually get to the highway budget, I'm going to bring that up.
Right.
Okay.
I will say that shortly I will be, and I actually met with Hugh today, and we went over a highway fleet schedule for the trucks.
Good.
And we are finalizing that. And most likely what we'll be proposing is the possibility of carrying on through the debt with a 5-year payment of 4 vehicles on a reoccurring basis, so that as a vehicle hits its 10th year, it going into its 11th, it'd be cycled into a secondary fleet or traded. And then we would keep our primary fleet within that 1 to 10 year age for medium and light trucks that are used. And then the larger trucks with a maintenance position that we're hoping to bring on, you should be able to get 15 years out of the large international or that type of vehicle. So you're going to see a proposal for us that will take us through the next 10 years for the truck fleet for the highway department.
What we were hoping to do, Michael, was to encourage expenses in order to do true budgeting, to have those expenses included in the budget rather than in special articles where there was a known recurring expense. Fire hoses are a good example of it.
Well, let's wait till we come to that, Steve.
No, but I'm just talking about the philosophical, philosophical approach that we took, the change that we attempted to encourage. I'm not focusing on, whether or not we need fire hoses. It's just a question of whether or not, if we do know that we need an item that has to be replaced on a periodic basis, we ought to be looking at having those expenses included in the budget rather than done by special article.
What do you think about that, Michael?
Well, the only reason I would look at the truck slightly different is that we're proposing that we need, for medium trucks, we need a pair of medium trucks. These are the 550, 650s for the main routes. And you'd be buying those on year 1 and year 6, and then cycling out over a 10-year period. So since you have gaps there, I would be proposing to fund it through, like I said, a 5-year borrowing. And then the other trucks, the lighter trucks, these are roughly 350s with outfitting a plow and everything else, would also be on the same, but not on the same years, on alternating years, in order to get us the fleet moving forward. So, the police cars are, because they're used, the way their police cars are used 3 shifts a day, cruisers are being used. they build up a lot of mileage very fast in those first 4 years. So basically, since we're replacing one every year, it's a little easier. But you'll see that when I put out the one, but whether you want to put it in the budget or fund it through, it could be funding the, if we're doing a debt service on it, it could be funding the debt service on the budget line. There's a couple options we can look at.
I think we need to wait until we get the whole aggregate picture put together before we make specific decisions. And I think that's what we're working toward. We're working through the operations, we'll get into the capital, and then we'll decide how to fund these things. So more to follow. I think the other issue at some point, Michael, we're going to talk to the fire department relative to what he has in mind. That's not on the next meeting. I do want to make a comment to the committee about the ambulance expense, which is pretty significant. The proposal is $278,000. Michael, you and I spoke about the prospects of possibly meeting with Chris Ketchen, you and I, to talk about a budget, an agreement, and how to get more of a handle on this. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. I haven't got the number from them. That's why it's in red. So that's still one that's hanging out there to get the final number and then come to how we're going to approach this in the future. So yes, I'll be asking Chris to set up a meeting so we can discuss that.
Okay. On public safety, are there any other issues? I don't think there's anything else that's significant here.
Okay, I have a question or a comment.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead, please.
Regarding the new cruiser to be ordered in the anticipation of a hybrid, has the police chief recommended or agreed that a hybrid, if you're using those vehicles 24/7, I just want to make sure the chief is aware of that and supports the idea of a hybrid for a police vehicle.
I think he proposed it.
Okay, that's fine. That's what I asked. Thanks.
Yeah, we had some discussions of it. There's a number of communities that do use them already in Berkshire County. Actually, North Adams was the lead community, the first one to purchase hybrid cruisers. The cruiser is definitely a beefed up model, and it was tested for a number of years, both on the California Highway Patrol for 5 years, and it was either Wisconsin or Minnesota in a cold weather state they were tested to make sure before they could be put out as an actual interceptor. So, and we can discuss whether or not that is the direction we want to be moving in.
But he's supportive of it, Jim. Okay, the chief. All right.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions at this point under public safety? Otherwise, we're going to move on briefly to education. Education, as I had mentioned previously, the total increase to the town's allocation is $217,652, both capital and operating. The increase is in measure due to a state reduction in Chapter 70. That's state aid for educational operation, and Chapter 71 monies, that's transportation. I think we'll hear more about that on the 23rd at the presentation. Any other comments on that, Michael?
No, really don't have any comments. I just looked at the same documents you guys have.
Yeah.
And we'll be learning more about that next Tuesday.
That's something.
Incidentally, the budget for the schools have been circulated to the committee. So, Steve, you had a question?
Well, I mean, it's something that we anticipated last spring. I mean,
Yes.
we did say, without knowing what the amount would be, that there would be it was most likely that Chapter 70 and Chapter 71 funds would be significantly reduced. And
Correct.
And here we have it.
And that's why we had a stabilization fund set up to deal with some of this stuff.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts at this point, folks, on education? Okay. Public Works. Michael, give us a brief overview of your thoughts on the highway and transfer station.
So as far as the highway department, this one was a little deeper dive into it. And we looked at all the positions that are at the highway department, including bringing on what we're proposing to bring on this year is a new position, which would be a mechanic's position at the highway. That would give us back to a 5-man workforce there. It's a new position we want to add in anticipation of getting onto a fleet schedule and getting a traditional maintenance schedule and really making sure we take care of our vehicles moving forward to get the best bang for the buck out of them. We were able to put everything together. Now, apparently, I was a little nervous about this budget because as I was putting it together, I kept seeing that there seemed to be quite a bit of salaries in the highway department. I've run through this a couple times. I've asked a couple of the department heads to look at it also. We are able to bring on another position in the DPW, and overall the DPW salaries is being reduced by $75,709. So it's a sizable decrease in the amount of that we'd be spending there. So and like I said, it brings on the 5th position, but doesn't fill the superintendent position, as you can see here, detailed in the breakdown summary. So, but I did go back and forth on this just to make sure that the numbers were right. So we do believe they're accurate. This also represents a 2% raise in the department.
Just one thought, if I might. When Michael Canales talks about a 5-person department, he's talking about 1 manager, one senior equipment operator, and 3 staff highway folks, hopefully one of whom would also be able to double as a mechanic. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Okay, so more to follow on that. He's been looking at this right from the beginning of the budget cycle. Couple of comments on the compactor transfer station.
Yeah, the transfer station is one of those, and you will notice that I did highlight in the budget a couple items in red because I am concerned about them. Last year, there was a new contract for the transfer station last year, and it really wasn't taken into effect. So I need to really closely look at these numbers. I haven't been able to finish my full analysis of the transfer station and where it needs to be. So there may be some adjustments to this number that's in the budget because of the change. Recycling costs, your other costs, this is a number that's going to continue to climb because there's automatic increases every year based on the cost of getting rid of trash. And all you have to do is read about it. Trash is going to be one of those things that's going to get more and more expensive as time goes on.
Any other comments? There was also an issue of extending of coverage for Saturday and Sunday. Is that?
Yeah, we've addressed the contract, the salaries. You'll see that there's a $5,000 increase in the compactor salaries. Last year when we brought on a full-time employee last year. I think it was, I'm trying to remember the dates. I think it was May of 2020 was brought on full-time. And that really wasn't properly shown in the budget for fiscal year 21. So I am a little concerned that we're going to end up short in that line at the end of this year. We're not short yet, but I believe we are going to end up short. So I did run the salaries, and 57,640 is where we would need to be to cover transportation and trash collection. And you can see that reflected in the DPW salaries, the transfer station. So we have 46,000 in salaries, 10,000 for the trash pickup on weekends, and then money for potential overtime for the department. So
Bill,
salaries
Bill vote.
are adjusted.
Michael, does this suggest that compactor stickers prices will go up or should go up?
That's an analysis we can do as we get to, and that would probably be what I would say we get to at the end. So as we bring in these departments, at least the way I've usually seen it done and have done it, we'll go through all the expenses, we'll bring the departments in, we'll do that. And then the last meeting we should have jointly between the finance committee and select board will be looking at our revenues. And then do we want to make any changes to those?
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Diane.
The person that is there daily, I assume that young man is 5 days a week, because then on Saturday and depending on Sunday, holiday, etc., depending on where we are in the year, the season, there's always been somebody else. So I'm assuming that salary is for a person full-time, 5 days a week. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And we're looking to make a couple adjustments around that also, including if we're going to have a full-time employee, the fact that the main day at the transfer station is Saturdays, and really should have the full-time person covering the primary days that the transfer station is open. So we're going to be making some tweaks in the operation of the transfer station to try to make it run as efficiently as possible.
But
Okay.
as we had mentioned, basically the operation is under review at this point.
Yeah.
Any
Big piece that's under review is the actual expenses, the actual
Correct.
getting rid of the trash.
correct? Anything on water and sewer?
Oh, I
So-
have one. I
Yep.
have one question, if I may. On one of the sheets that I have here from your report, Jay, I don't know if I'm out of turn here or not, but you have a water and sewer utilities relocation of $280,000, which is moving. It's for the Curtisville Bridge. Those pipes, I assume.
Yes,
moving
and basically, Diane, 140,000
What's
came from water and sewer surplus. The other actually came as an article in 2020 at the annual town meeting.
But that total amount of money, my question is, the 140 is to relocate it so the bridge can be repaired, and then the balance is to put it back where it originally was. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. The 280 is for the relocation of the utilities onto the bridging unit above it, above the current Curtisville Bridge. At some
So
point
then-
when the Curtisville is repaired or a decision is made on what to do with the Curtisville Bridge, the other bridge could be removed and then the utilities relocated back.
Then that would be another expense.
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on water and sewer, Michael?
Water and sewer, really the big one that we looked at is the fact that we adjusted their electricity. Back when the solar came on, you could see that their actual expenditures in electricity have significantly dropped. So we trimmed each of the budgets for those departments. We'll look at it again in another year and see if it's still trending the way it is. And if it is, that's an area we'll continue to look at.
And basically, just to be a little more specific, the solar array that generates electricity allows us to reduce our electric bill. Is that a correct statement, Michael?
Yes, so we are able to buy credits at a reduced rate. Typically, you see about a 20% reduction in your cost of electricity. So you're able to purchase credits, and then those credits are applied to your bill, which lowers your bill.
Okay. Anything else on that? I think we're okay relative to public works at this point. I don't have anything else. Anything else you have, Michael, on that one?
Nope.
Okay, the culture and recreation, we talk about parks and recreation here.
You
uh,
skipped,
rel-
human services.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Human services, the increase in Tri-Town Health, in the Tri-Town Health Officer. Basically, we have a 3 community visiting nurse service. We pay a portion of that. And you raise a good point, Bill. Michael, talk to us about Council on the Aging.
All right, so one of the things that we're looking at in the Council on Aging is there was an organization in South County that used to offer transportation for elderly and others, which has since become defunct. And the town of Great Barrington is taking over services for transportation. And speaking with them, we've talked about the possibility of incorporating Stockbridge into that, basically taking a regional approach to transportation available to seniors. In return for the first number of years, we'd be looking at this year putting an article to transfer the van to Great Barrington, and in return, we would get X years back in services where we wouldn't have to pay for the services. It'd be paid through our donation of the van. This allows us to not have to incur the cost of drivers in the budget for the Council on Aging.
Good point. Thanks for suggesting that we dig into it, Bill. That was a good one, okay? Also, I think that would be the only item. Is there anything else under human services that we should raise, Michael?
Nope, those are really the only 2 significant changes.
Okay, culture and recreation. Do you want to mention the improvements for the library?
Yeah, so one of the things that the library has come forward about upgrading their HVAC system. The HVAC system is going to allow better airflow over at the library, plus filtering for COVID protections, which allowed us to apply to use our CARES Act money to support their grant applications to go after it. The CARES Act money was originally slated to expire on December 31st of 2020. And at that time, we still had an outstanding balance of $123,000 remaining. So when they've extended the use, and this is a very good use, the select board has approved allowing $100,000 to be used toward this endeavor. And it would come out of the CARES Act funding. So it wouldn't have any impact on the budget for the town, and does allow the library to make a significant upgrade in their system.
Any comments on that? Okay. Briefly, do you want to touch on Parks and Recreation? There's an issue of paving a basketball court.
Yeah, that one's more under capital, which we'll end
Okay.
up getting to when I put out the capital budget to everybody. But you'll see that Parks and Recreation is in red because I actually met with them on the 11th. And when I met with them on the 11th, I did update I was able to discuss with them their upcoming budget, and we did make a couple changes. So I forgot that I have the budget open. Let me open. I did upgrade Park and Recreation. Can you guys see where this is with the change to Park and Rec? So they've reduced their salaries by 3,500, but they are asking for expenses to be increased by 5,750. And that's mainly around some of the repairs they want to make to equipment, beach, and other locations. So I met with them on the 11th and we went over all that. So in the end, it's about a $2,000 increase overall to their budget.
Okay, you have, I think that would about cover it for culture and recreation. Michael has scheduled our debt service. We have talked about with the reduction of interest rates, refinancing that, some of the debt. Our debt, we're paying off debt, so therefore the total encumbrance to the town will be reduced. It was reduced last year. It'll be reduced this year. And we need to explore further refinancing of debt based on the current environment. And Bill Vogt, we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
So,
Who would we discuss that with?
Erica Olson, our treasurer, she could discuss that with some of the banks that we have. Is that a fair statement, Michael?
Yeah, so I got to check who we use for our bond and debt service. Typically, commercial banks have the ability to help us with this. In North Adams, we use Unibank. I need to check if that's who it is here. And then just look at what debts are available to be refinanced at this point, and then whether or not it would be in our best interest to redo some of these. We do have almost $1 million in debt services dropping off by 2027. So it becomes an issue that we're only facing another 5 years of payment on a lot of our current debt, and whether or not the current debt, whether or not it would make much of a difference or even be cost effective to refinance at this point, we need to look at.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I think that's absolutely right. We should be looking at any refinancing opportunities of this whole array of debt. You mentioned that we'll have some of the debt comes off in 2027. Of course, between now and 2027, we'll probably add debt to pay for the new high school, among other things.
Right.
Michael, we are using Unibank. We've been using Unibank for quite some time. And
All right.
Clark Rowell has been.
Yeah, he's retired now.
Yes, I know.
David.
Clark, I know Clark is retired, but we had been using him for years.
Yep.
To help us with this.
Yes, and I used him in North Adams over the years. It was Clark, and then this last year was David. Might have been Eisenthal, but I'll reach out to Unibank then and get this ball rolling.
Good. He's going to get into this. We need to get into this.
Good, thank you.
Okay, the other issue that we need to explore, and Michael and I have talked about this, is what we do with the OPEB. We need to have a conversation with Odyssey. We need to determine the exposure, review the exposure, determine how sufficient our funding is to date, whether we should be doing anything, nothing, or a minimal 50,000 a year. More to follow on that. We don't have an answer right now. We haven't talked to Odyssey. Okay, so we'll be dealing with that. And
Like
I think
I said, those are one of those few items that you see in red that are still not finalized at this point. So this is, as I said to the select board, this is our first draft. This is the motor's running, but it's a little clunky. And we're going to spend the next 2 months fine tuning this to the point that everybody's comfortable with it.
Just on employee benefits, the other point is healthcare costs are significant, obviously, retirement. And we get a question every year, what's on designated compensation? That's compensation for somebody, a salary and benefits, who decides to retire in midterm that hasn't been budgeted for. So we have a we have an amount, 40,000 to deal with that. And it actually happened last year. And town insurance, just from the insurance perspective, specifically public officials liability, anything to do with liability, workers' comp, the rates are going up. So that's something that we have to anticipate. And I think, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, the budget as it's been drafted right now is 127,145 increase over the expiring. Is that correct?
120, yep, 127, 145 is the
Mhm.
most recent one, and I'll get around the updated draft after this meeting, because anything that's, like I said, there was a tweak to the Parks and Rec that isn't in the one I sent around to you guys. So yes, that's the overall increase to the budget. The town budget right now on the proposal is 90,508 lower than last year.
Right. So more to follow. There is no action on this right at this particular juncture. And anybody have any questions on the operating budget before we talk about some of the proposed warrant items? Anybody?
No, good work, Michael. So far, it's good.
I think Michael, having had the opportunity to work closely with him, has done an exemplary job here, and has really gotten into the nitty gritty and challenged some of the things that we've been doing in the past. So thank you, Michael, on behalf of all of us.
Jay, I do have one comment apropos of something that you said earlier, about the increase in the education budget.
Yep.
And you said that we set money aside in a special COVID stabilization fund to handle, losses of revenue like this,
Yep.
or increases in cost, losses of revenue. So is there any discussion about, with $127,000 increase, 217,000 of which is attributable to, I think it was 217, it could be more,
That's
is
correct.
attributable to the loss of Chapter 70 and Chapter 71 funds. Is there any thought about using any portion of that COVID stabilization in order to pay for that, so that we don't have, we will not have, we will not go over budget. We won't have to raise and appropriate.
I think it's a worthwhile comment. No
Thank you.
action has been taken at this point.
Oh, I know. I just
Yeah.
want people to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way I look at this, we really owe it to our residents to minimize the tax increase, the tax burden. So, we'd be a little ahead of ourselves as far as that's concerned. Okay. All right.
Speaking of tax revenues and added expense, you talk to these towns that, and I'm sure you've done this, Michael, that have marijuana facilities, and the windfall of tax revenues, like in Great Barrington, it's something like $1 million a year. Probably more with all these new ones opening up. I'm assuming we have had no interest expressed in establishing such a facility in Stockbridge.
Not since I've been here has there been anything that's come forward as far as marijuana.
Yeah.
I will say that Great Barrington jumped early, got on fast, and most of their traffic is being driven by Connecticut and New York.
And New York.
And once you get Connecticut and New York legalized,
You got it.
it's
And
not
New
going to be the windfall that it is now, just like almost like the casinos when the only casinos
Right.
were in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Huge difference. And now the casinos all over are struggling even before COVID because they're now just everywhere. So
Right.
New
Okay.
York bill is in the process of legalizing marijuana, a number of different components of marijuana and marijuana growing. So
I know.
that will have impact.
I know. Okay, thanks.
Bill, I have a comment to make if I may. This was kind of, it was discussed, I think, 2 years ago, and it had to do with the setbacks, whatever was legal. You couldn't be near the church so many feet, near the school, blah, 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 blah. And there was no way at that time, as I understood it, that we would have anything that would be a realistic or legal space to put any kind of a marijuana shop. And the comment at that time was, oh, go down to the industrial park. Well, since then, I have no clue. And you can see all these towns around doing what I call the greed in terms of taking in all of this money from marijuana. And now you have a big to-do over in Lenox and Lee with the oak and spruce over there,
That's
and that
correct.
whole piece of property. So right now at this point, it is what it is, and that's it. So anyway.
Well, I think Christine just sent us a message, and I believe the planning board is stipulating that any sites like that would be confined to the industrial park. I believe that's correct.
Yeah,
That's what I thought it was.
Secondly, the comment I would make is I agree with Michael and Jay and whoever else was making the comments regarding the windfall for whether it's Great Barrington or whatever. When the rest of those states all open it up, and they will, we're going to see those revenues plummet.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Given the small town that we have, I hope we never get marijuana in this town for sale. If the residents want it, let them go somewhere else. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
mine too.
I agree.
Okay, let's move on if we can. Any last questions on the operating draft at this point? I'd like to spend a few minutes on some of the proposed warrant and capital items. I would preface my comments by saying that this is a pretty handsome laundry list. And obviously, it's got to be put into perspective as to need and timing. And I'm not sure all of these things can be, and financing, all of these things could be done at once. The first one of these was a proposal for $40,000 to continue the work of the planning board consultant. Okay. Another one would be consideration of repair of the chime tower. Michael, I don't know if we have a final cost estimate. The number of 550,000 was thrown around. Another one is redesign of the 720 intersection near the Red Lion. There's talk of 960,000 for that. Replacement of the pump station. And the comment was made by one of the members of our finance committee. Were we considering a prefab structure? Yes, the replacement of the pump station would be done with a prefab structure. That's estimated at 700,000. Water and sewer underground cameras, 12,000, so they can look at the pipes, water and sewer pipes under the streets. Quiet Knoll tank cleaning, 4,000. Tuckerman Bridge re-engineering study, 38,000.
Where is the Tuckerman Bridge? I'm sorry, I don't know where that is.
Michael, do you know where that is?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which bridge that is. I'm still not good with all the names.
You're forgiven. Does anybody know
Alright.
what the Tuckerman Bridge is? I've never heard of it.
Well, that'll be a question next Thursday for microphone.
I'm thinking maybe it's in Lee or Great Barrington.
Okay, clarify Tuckerman Bridge location.
I think it's the bridge at the end of Park Street that goes over to the Mary Flint Trail. I think that's the Tuckerman Bridge, which is badly in need of repair. There's no question it's in need of repair.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
on Park Street, is that what you're saying, Steve?
That's the one.
Okay. Another one is we had referred to police portable and mobile radio replacements. The estimate on that one is 38,000. the Parks and Recreation basketball court resurfacing. Michael has mentioned to me that that this is a lease to the town. We have to maintain it. There could be a $90,000 expense there.
Is that the outdoor court or the one in town hall?
The outdoor court,
They're looking to do multiple tennis courts and basketball.
outside.
So outside,
I see.
And they're needed.
Okay.
including
The-
fencing around the tennis court, which is a
The other issue that we will get into with the fire department, I'm not gonna discuss that. It's a little premature. We referred to hose replacement, body work on equipment, station repair. We're not prepared to talk about that right now. Michael has briefly raised a vehicle replacement for the highway department. Also, the community preservation projects come up for review a week from tomorrow on the 26th. So that will be another issue that comes forward as articles. And there has been some discussion on the matter of residential tax exemption. I'm not prepared to really get into it at this point. Obviously, we need to know why towns like Great Barrington rejected it and what towns in Massachusetts have it, what benefit it could bring or not bring to the town of Stockbridge. I really don't have a lot to say about that at this point. It's a little premature. But anything specific, Michael, that we want to talk about on these items, we obviously have to finalize the cost and put these in some priority basis and timing and funding basis.
Yep.
And
So as I
Jay,
said,
Neil, I'd like to ask what the intersection by the Red Lion Inn, why that 960,000 and what that would involve.
so we'll get into the details of the capital items. I'm going to be presenting a capital item budget to the selectmen and then to the finance committee. What I will be doing also is I did put out for the each department to submit their proposals. So I'm going to show you what one is as far as how we're doing the capital.
Well, I'm wondering, I think that new sign by the Red Lion Inn solves the problem. I don't know why we need to fiddle with that intersection if it's the Red Lion Inn.
This is not the Red Lion Inn, though, is it?
Oh,
Yes.
which one is it? That's what I heard.
It's the Red Lion Inn intersection and sidewalk.
And the one by the fire station.
on Main Street.
Yeah, I can understand the fire station because of the angle, but the Red Lion Inn, I think, is fine with that new sign. I don't want to spend 960,000 for something that's fine.
Well, I don't think we're proposing anything specific at this point. The issue that's been raised, we need detail on this.
Right, so these, I'm gonna just quickly share the screen for one moment to show you. So this is, I put out to anybody that's putting forward to put in a capital improvement request form. And this is an example of the Tuckerman Bridge engineering, which department it's for, who's it for, where was the source of the estimate that came from, what's the priority category, such as in this case, it's asset preservation and preventative maintenance, when was it last done, a description of it, and then where possible fundings would come from and what costs would impact future operating budgets. These are being done for every single one and then supporting documents with it. So like when we get to the point of really discussing the capital items, such as the intersection, you will have this capital request form and you will also have the supporting documents of what's being done. So everybody can make decisions on what you want to move forward to town meeting. What I did was just take the requests, compile them, and then I will be putting together along with some of my recommendations, but ultimately decisions will be made by the Finance Committee and Select Board as far as what projects are being done, what are being brought forward, And then ultimately town meeting will decide the final decision.
And the proposal, how that'd be financed, right?
A question or comment from looking at this. Steve had mentioned that the bridge was in bad need of development, but from reading this, we're really just talking about the Water and Sewer Commission.
I may be wrong, Jim, about about which bridge this is, and I apologize.
Okay, yeah, but this one here certainly makes sense to me if it hasn't been last replaced since 1917.
Right.
We need to get into the details, Jim.
Yeah, okay.
And all this is coming very shortly.
Good.
So,
And I
Yeah.
have an apology to make to Neil Holden. I didn't realize you were on the call, Neil.
Well, I'm doing it only by phone, and I came in about 3 minutes late, and I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay, so I apologize to you and welcome, okay?
Thank you.
All right, so where we are at this point, next, the meeting to follow is on the 23rd with the budget for the Berkshire Hills School. On the 25th, we will be talking in a joint meeting with the Select Board relative to the Southern Berkshire Planning School Planning proposal, and we will be bringing in departments, as Michael had said, like police and water and sewer, along with that proposal, and more to follow on the warrants and capital items. The other piece of business is I did circulate to everybody a copy of the audit report and the management letter. We will be scheduling a meeting with the auditors on an exit audit basis, and everybody did get a copy of the Finance Committee 2020 Town Report. And one thing, Michael, to keep in the back of your mind that I didn't hear, and Steve Schatz, you could jump in on this. We need to have a feel for any further encumbrances relative to the rest of the river activities that Stockbridge is committed to. You know, I don't see anything in the budget or warrants on this at this point.
Yeah.
So it's something we need to talk about.
Yes, thank you, and it's on my list.
Right.
So at some point, Michael, I will need to talk to the Board of Selectmen in executive session, unfortunately,
all right.
because there's ongoing litigation involving this matter. So
Right.
ultimately the number will be in public, but I can't really discuss it in a forum like this.
Not a problem. I just don't want to let it slide by because we
Would
need
you
to-
like, are you prepared to do it at the next meeting on the 25th? Because I could put on the meeting the exemption that we'd be going in for, and we could do it at the conclusion of that meeting.
The 25th, let's just see what I've got.
that's the
Oh, we've got the joint meeting of
Yes.
the
Right.
school departments, and can I do it then?
Yeah, well, we get into a breakout room.
I'm going to attend that meeting, so yes, I mean, the answer is yes, I can do it. Just let me know when, where, and okay.
Right, we'll set up a breakout room so we can go to another room and discuss an executive session.
Fine, thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, is there anything else to come before this committee at this point? I think
I have
everybody-
one question, if I may. I'm jumping 10 steps ahead probably, but is it probable that Michael Blay, our assessor, will weigh in on with regard to all of this monies, the budget, et cetera, and how it's going to affect the mill rate?
The tax rate, so.
Yes.
One of the things that I worked with and I had Mike review is if you go to the end of the budget document, is that we have an estimate. It's, let me screen share again. Sorry.
While you're
I'm
pulling
not
that up, Michael, does your estimate there include all of these anticipated warrant articles?
Well, it depends on the funding of them. So
Okay.
we'll see as this is just based on the budget as is, and then depends on where we're bringing those other items from, whether they're gonna be free cash, borrowings, where they'll come in.
Okay.
So the last page says tax rate 22, and this takes in all of our funding, everything else that includes where we're at today. And based on the percentages of our levy, as shown in these boxes here, gives us an approximate tax rate. So obviously, when you go to do your recap, that's when you get into the final numbers and any adjustments from year prior and the rest. But based on what we've done so far, this is the tool that we'll be using to come up with an estimate. And I know, like I said, I had Mike Blay look over this. It's something that we used in North Adams. And then we pulled some of the information right off the Commonwealth website to get our levy limits and others as we build toward the upcoming year. So right now, based on where the budget is at this point, and this is, like I said, the first draft run of it, we're looking at a tax rate of $9.91.
It's up,
That's
that's
if
up a
we
little.
make no changes at all, which is
Right.
a difference of about 1.36%.
Okay.
More
Thank
to
you.
follow on this. It's a little premature to discuss this right now.
Yes, it is, but just it gives you some kind of an idea that where we are, that we're not jumping off the cliff, shall we say.
Diane, I think you're using creative accounting. You pick the tax rate and work backwards, okay?
Yeah,
That's a different type of business, all right?
sure.
Okay? All right, so
Yeah.
one more question and then
I-
let's
you know, I
adjourn.
just want to tell Michael that the Tuckerman Bridge just came to me. Is at the west end of Main Street. It's where Main Street connects to the Glendale Middle Road. There's a
Oh, all
bridge.
right.
That's the bridge.
Yeah. And now that you say that, I'm pretty sure, yes. That's what I was trying to
Thank you.
remember, because Mike Buffoni told me where it was and I'm just blanking on it.
Okay,
You mean the
everybody.
bridge by the golf course?
That's the one.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Anything else before we adjourn? We'll talk to everybody coming next Tuesday, okay?
Jay,
Thank you, Michael, for all your help.
Jay, I would like to add to Steve's comments or Bill's comments. It really is, again, as I said before, a breath of fresh air to have Michael on top of this stuff to the degree that he already is. And I think it's going to really do well for our town.
I think Michael is 200% fully engaged, okay? And we
Amen.
appreciate it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Michael.
everybody.
Thanks.
Right, everyone.
Bye-bye
Thank
now.
you.